everyone. Welcome all to the Snail Trail 4x4 podcast. If you like going off-roading in Toyotas, wrenching on Toyotas, camping in Toyotas, and maybe even poking a tiny itsy-bitsy little bit of fun at Toyotas, and of course, having some meat in Toyotas, then this is the podcast for you. Not while you're driving, though. Welcome, everybody. My name is Tyler, and joining me for episode 336 of the Snail Trail 4x4 podcast is the one and only Jimmy Jett. Hi, Jimmy.
Hi, Tyler. How's it going?
I'm doing well. How are you, man?
Doing all right.
Nice.
I'm having a good little sippy sip going on here on the cuddle couch.
Yeah, you're alone on the cuddle couch now, though. Where'd your compatriots go?
I don't know. I did have two other fine gentlemen. Well, maybe not fine, but other gentlemen here on the couch with me. Uh-huh. And they're gone now.
Oh.
But we did
do some Alabama wrestle. What was it? The Alabama arm wrestling?
I don't remember.
Alabama arm wrestling.
Is that what it was?
I think so.
I don't remember. No, but it was nice. Moreflate Sean went out to a meadery.
Do they have like a bunch of sausages?
Yeah,
and
not to be confused with a meatery.
Uh-huh.
So he went out to a distillery that makes mead.
Oh, nice.
And he went and did some sampling, and he brought back 2 bottles for us to do some samples with.
He did.
Moreflate crew sat around, and I got to join. And he brought back if
OSHA's listening, it was off hours. Everybody was clocked out.
Yep. It was this evening when we were having it. So he brought back a standard regular mead and then one that has Uzo? No, what's it called?
Zuzu.
Yuzu. It has yuzu in it.
Yuzu.
Which is some Japanese lemon lime mix or something like
Panasonic.
That. Yeah.
It's like
exactly.
Or Yokohama.
Yeah.
No, yeah, it was pretty damn tasty. I've never had mead before.
Yeah, that shocked me.
Yeah.
Everybody around me has never had it before. And I was like, really? Because I've had it before. I bought a bunch of honey from CJ with a CJ a few years ago to try and make mead, but I never did. I still have the honey. But it's good. We did a little bit of...
Is that where the bee keeps his stinger?
Yes.
Okay.
In his honey.
That's a good one.
You crack yourself up.
I do. Thank you.
But we did a little bit of research on mead, and we found out that it was like 7th millennia BC in China was when they first were talking about mead. And then, it was definitely during the Middle Ages, and during that time, they were drinking wine and mead, and they started developing beer. And so it's been around for a long, long time. It's just not a very common drink these days.
Yeah.
And it's pretty much
Which is strange to me. They're tasty and they're super refreshing.
Yeah, they're very refreshing. They're very sweet, and they've got a lot of sugar.
Yep.
So I think that's sort of one of the reasons that it's not very common anymore. Is just the amount of sugar that's usually in them from honey.
Yeah.
Those Trulies in there are so low calorie because they don't have sugar. They have stevia or whatever you call it. I just think that it's not a common thing anymore, even though it's been around forever and a day.
Yeah.
But it's good. It's just pretty much honey and water.
Yeah.
And then it's fermented.
Naturally fermented. Which is that was surprising to me.
Yeah. Because when we were talking about it, I'm like, no, they got to add yeast into it.
Yeah, it's going to have something.
You can't just throw sugar and water together and have it ferment, but apparently you can. If it sits long enough, it'll do it. We were talking on the Wheeling Wine and Whiskey episode last week, and, they do a naturally fermented wine, and it's just the grapes and the water, and off it goes. Yeah. So to some extent, I guess, there's yeast in the air. Yeah. Maybe that's what it does it, but
that's weird.
So when I make mead, I'm going to add yeast because I want it to go faster.
You don't want to have it ferment for 10 years or whatever?
Yeah, no, I want to drink it in a matter of weeks or something, but which you probably still can't do, but but it's super tasty. And it was nice of Sean to bring us some bottles and do some sampling and try it out. He's just trying to brown nose for his Christmas bonus. That's really what it is. So don't give into that. Okay. Don't reward that behavior. I'll give you a bonus, Sean.
Anyways, so Monday. Today is Monday for everybody out there.
Yes, it is.
Which it is also a new month.
Yeah, yes, it is.
So we have a lot of cool stuff going on this month. Before we get into that, please, if you skipped over the last episode 335, go back and listen to it. It's a really big, really important episode. Everybody needs to listen to it. So go back, listen to it, and do your call to actions. That is what's going to help keep our industry alive. Right. And our hobby alive.
Yeah, you have to submit those forms or submit those paragraphs and your entry before the 7th. So you have a few more days after this airs to get those in. So if you don't know what we're talking about, go back and listen to the previous episode 335 and get filled in about what's happening and what you need to do.
Yep, 100%. Another thing that you can do is we have questions that need to be asked. And I believe Jimmy has submitted like 7 so far. 8 anonymously. So everybody else needs to get some questions in for episode 350 because we're going to sit down with the significant others, the secretary and the assistant again. There's no questions that are off limits.
Nope.
If we end up finding they're off limits, we just won't air it. You won't know.
But we still might talk about it around the circle.
Right. Give us some questions to be directed at anybody, everybody, nobody. Just a statement of how stupid you think that I am. It all works great. So do that. The link is down in the show notes here underneath this episode and previous episodes up until 350. I think we're going to have that link in all the show notes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So go do that. Let's see. We will pull a winner for September's Gear Wrench Corey's
Storage clean out,
locker, snail trail shop clean out, tool giveaway. So we'll pick a winner for that next Thursday. So this week on Thursday, when that episode comes out, we'll have a winner announced for that. That means we have a new giveaway for this month.
That October. We do. Yes, we do.
What is it, Jimmy?
It is none other than 2 Ultimate Tire Repair Kits.
Extreme
Tire Repair Kits from Morphlate.
Woo! Go Morphlate!
Woo! Which includes the tire plug kit, the Colby valves, and the bags of phenomenal glue treads.
Yep. So we got some glue tread sidewall patches in there, the Colby valves, the tire plug kit, which has 50 tire plugs, the metal T-handles with a stopper, and extra valve stems, some grease, a razor, some pliers, and some other extra valve cores and some other fun things in there. So check that out. If you want to get entered for that, you got to get in now before the end of the month, before the end of October here. Just go over to irate4x4.com, head down to the Snail Trail 4x4 forum, which is obviously ahead and above of the Wheeling Wine and Whiskey forum. I just like to point that out. Because Austin prioritizes based on the better podcasts.
Not alphabetical.
It's not alphabetical, has nothing to do with it.
Right.
Yeah. Just go click on that Snail Trail 4x4 forum. Go in there and all your options to pay will be on the right-hand side if you're on a computer. If you're on a mobile device, it'll be down at the bottom of the page. So you can get into that, which also means that the gift box tier is open as well. So there's a lot of options here for the gift box tier that we got to go over to make sure that it gets done correctly, right? Because we don't want anybody to get double charged or anything like that. If you're in the gift box tier and you want to stay in the gift box tier, cool. You don't got to do anything. Congratulations. High five to you. What do you got?
I got that one too, right?
We do have one. High five. That's perfect. Jimmy Jet live on the board today.
There you go. But if you're in the $10 tier and you want to move up to the $20 tier, you can do that. You just have to go online. You have to go to iRate. You have to sign up for the $20 tier, but you also need to go onto your PayPal account and cancel the $10 tier.
Yep.
Because just transferring over and moving up a tier will not cancel the other tier. You're just signing at that point. You're signing up for 2 tiers. You're signing up for 2 times that you're going to get reoccurring statements.
Yep.
So that goes for also if you're going down a tier. If you do choose to go from the gift box tier down to the $10 giveaway tier, then you still need to cancel your gift box tier. So if you're moving any tier one way or another, you do that on iRate. but then you need to go to PayPal and you need to cancel the previous tier that you were in.
Yep. And we know that there's also been people that have been waiting to transfer over from Patreon.
Correct.
So now that the gift box tier is open, you can also now come over to the light side and come over to iRate 4x4 and get signed up on the gift box tier there. In doing so, make sure you cancel your Patreon subscription. For people that are still on the annual Patreon subscription, I think we have all those worked out. You don't need to do anything. Just hang out until I think January is when we opened that up this year.
Yeah.
And got everybody signed up on those.
If you do want to move on, we will give you as many months as it's been free for the most part on iRate.
Yep.
And we'll offset that for you guys, and you won't have no more money will come out of your account if you just want to move over.
Yep. There's a bunch of updates going on, a lot of stuff coming on. It's October, so just a busy month for housekeeping stuff.
Yeah, I think let's just say if you guys have any questions about changing tiers or moving from Patreon or any of that, please just contact us. We'll be more than happy to talk to you guys about it and help you figure out the problem or solve it one way or another. Just email us, Jimmy or Tyler at snailtrail4x4.com, and we'll help you out.
Yep. 100%. So what else do we got? I think that does it for housekeeping stuff.
Do we have any voicemails, or do we... Let this sort of rhetorical question. I know we have some voicemails.
Yeah.
Do we want to get into that just a little bit later on the main topic?
We're going to get into that on the main topic. Yeah.
Okay. Was there any voicemails that came in that were not centered around the main topic?
There was not.
Okay.
Yep.
Sounds good.
Yep. So yeah, I think we're all good to get over into the main topic today.
Awesome.
Got a lot covered in a quick amount of time. So, some more fun Axle Talk podcasts coming up for everybody. So without further ado, grab your favorite mead. I'm liking that Isuzu.
The rodeo.
The rodeo Isuzu with a Honda Passport.
Yeah.
I saw a Passport for sale on Marketplace the other day for like $500.
What?
And I was like,
bought it.
Yeah. And I have another, I should have just bought it and dropped it off at your place. I need a bigger warehouse. Anyways, so with that, my friends, grab your favorite drinks. We'll be right on back with today's main topic. Oh, welcome back, ladies and gentle ladies, to today's campfire discussion. We get to cover some more Axle Talk podcast stuff.
Whoop, whoop.
Yep, I'm excited. Especially excited because we actually got a lot of good feedback, some good questions.
Good questions, good feedback, and some hate.
Not a whole lot of hate, surprisingly.
Okay.
Yeah. Mainly people were kind of like, have you thought about doing this? Or have you thought about doing this? I'm like, yes, I did. I did indeed. Thank you.
Yeah.
So,
well, did you write some of those down to say why you decided not to go that route?
I did.
Okay.
Yep. So I have a nice list here of some feedbacks from people. So should we jump right into it, or do we need to kind of go over what I'm doing? Just like
let's give a very quick overview in case somebody was not listening to episode, what was it? 332, 334?
I think it was 332.
Yeah.
Yeah. So essentially I'm building axles.
You want me to do it since you talk a lot?
Yes, please do it. Please. That would go a lot quicker.
Tyler's building custom axles, and he mainly centered them around the Toyota 10.5-inch Tundra third member. From there, once he figured out he wanted to do that third member, it was, okay, how do I use that third member and build out these pretty much full width axles? And then it came down to trying to figure out housings, and then steering components, axle shafts, and axle shafts, because nobody really makes like outsides for full widths with a Toyota spline. So he has to get some custom made ones done. And there's so many options for steering components on the ends of custom made axles that it pretty much, he spun in circles 30 times trying to figure out the direction he wanted to go.
Yep.
And that pretty much brings you up to today.
Yeah. Perfect. And there's been a lot of people that have input on how I could be building the axles. It seems like for some reason I am a very strange creature.
Yes.
I don't view things the way they should be done. I view things in like, what's the potential here? What could I do? Such as, why I'm getting into these axles in the first place, because I wanted to run 40s on my 4Runner. And for the while there, I was like, you know what? We can do 40s on Toyota axles. And everybody's like, you're going to blow up your Toyota axles. This is not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. You're going to break them. Yeah. It doesn't work.
Yeah. And surprisingly, I've been running 40s for about 2 years now, if you include the 3950 IROCs that I had on there.
Okay.
Which Hussman would not include in that category.
No, he would not.
I've been running them about 2 years. The only issue I've really had was I snapped my knuckleball off, which is a big issue.
Yes. I think that issue would have happened on 37s though. I
agree. I think that was due to some bad welding on the gussets from whoever I acquired the axles from. And I think it would have happened no matter what tire I was on.
Yeah. They were cracked already. There was already rust happening. It just happened to break when you added more weight.
More weight and a speed going down a forest road.
Yes.
And
it happened pretty soon right after you put 40s on, right?
It did. Yeah.
And then you've been romping around on 40s for now another year and a half, and you haven't had that issue since.
No. Haven't had the issue since. Yeah, I haven't broken axle shafts. I haven't blown a Burfield yet. I did blow up one of my mile marker hubs, but that was because I broke the housing because I was only running 5 studs rather than 6. And so that's just user error.
Yeah.
And mile marker was real. I told him, I said, I fucked up. I'm completely messed up here, but I know that you guys have a warranty. Is there any way you would cover it? If not, I totally get it. I still need to order a set of hubs. And they're like, oh no, we'll send you a set of hubs.
Yeah.
And I not a set. He said, yeah, we'll send you a hub. And I was like, okay, cool. That's awesome. And he ended up sending me a set of hubs.
Correct.
2 free ones.
Yeah.
No questions asked, even though I told him I was an idiot. And so that's why I'm running mile marker hubs on the new axles.
Yes. So you want selectable hubs because you street drive your rig. And that's the reason you're going with mile markers, because they had great customer service when it came down to it.
Yep. I like to stand behind companies that stand behind their customers. That's why we're doing the mile markers. And, I haven't really had issues with my Toyota axles.
No,
but I feel like I'm still flirting with disaster.
Yeah.
Whenever I go out,
I think 40s are really pushing the limits of those axles. And depending on your driving style, you can either continue to make it work or you're going to fail.
I agree. And I think that I could make it continue to work, but I think I'm starting to enjoy doing a little bit more rougher stuff and not being as easy on the vehicle and babying the vehicle. And so I'm like, I need to go up to some bigger axles here.
Yes,
and then
I agree.
We went down the rabbit hole of trying to figure out what to do with everything. And we talked about it all a few episodes ago now. And we had some great feedback come in from people and some questions.
So where do you want to start?
I'm going to start off with the first one, which is kind of the most obvious one. Factory.
Is it just WTF?
WTF? Yeah. What? Why? No. Factory F250 calipers will fit inside a 17-inch rim with a factory caliper and rotor.
Okay.
Willwood told me they would not.
Oh.
So I remember when we said that in the podcast, it was because I was having that discussion with Willwood and I was like, well, what do you guys have? I said, can I just run, your guys' equivalent to a factory F250 calipers? And he said, well, yeah, you could. He goes, what wheels are you going to run? I said, 17s. He goes, oh, they're not going to fit.
Maybe the Willwood's equivalent doesn't fit, but factory does.
And that's exactly what it comes down to.
Okay.
Factory does, but I took that as they wouldn't fit.
Right.
The other thing is then, I want to keep the brakes the same on all 4 corners.
Yes.
So then I would have to figure out how to apply the factory F250 calipers and rotors to the rear, which wouldn't be that bad, I don't think. But I'm running out of time. I feel like I'm starting to get squeezed on time because I don't want to miss a whole lot of snow season. I want to get all this done. So I went away from that option and I'm looking at the Dynalite 4 calipers from Willwood, which have proprietary pads, which means I'll just carry an extra set of brake pads. One set of brake pads should cover all 4 corners. Rarely do you see issues happen with brakes in the first place. And if they do, rarely do you see it happen to 2 different brakes.
Right.
At least in recreation rock crawling.
Shall we clarify that one pair of pads does not actually cover all 4 corners, but you could use it in any of the 4 corners if you need to.
Thank you. Yes, that's a good way to put it. So,
wow, I want one pair of pads that works on all 4 or covers all 4 corners.
That'd be amazing.
Some big pads. You're just squeezing the whole rig at that point.
Yeah, I'm not. There's somewhere else you can go with that. But anyways, there's a joke in there somewhere.
Yes. Now that you say that.
Yeah. So 17-inch rims will fit factory F250 calipers and rotors. There's lots of people that have done it. They got a lot of pictures about it of people with their factory 17-inch rims on their F250s. It'll work.
And Willwood makes calipers that does fit in 17-inch rims for your application?
For my application, but they don't run the factory brake pads, the F250 brake pads.
Got it.
So I've got to get Willwood's proprietary brake pads.
Okay.
For it.
Clarified. Thank you.
And so that was the first thing. And then along the options of wheels, I had Charles Milholland reached out, and apparently there's a company out there called Strapped Performance.
Cool.
That makes 17 by 10 beadlocks.
Okay.
So I was having trouble, talking about, hey, I was going to go with the 8 on 6.5 lug pattern because that's the only lug pattern available with the Raceline 17 by 9.5 beadlocks. Right. This company, Strapped Performance, have 17 by 10s, which is phenomenal for what I want to do snow wheeling, in 8 by 170s, which is the stock 05 unit bearing lug pattern drill
nice.
pattern.
Okay, so you're not going to have to get modified unit bearings or the 6 on or 8 on 6.5 unit bearings. You could get a stock.
I can get a stock 8 by 170 unit bearing and run it. So I can get that at any auto parts store. Timken has them all over the place, and run it on a beadlock wheel that is a wide wheel,
right,
for snow wheeling.
Yeah, you want wide for the snow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So, but I know nothing about that company. Never heard of them before. I don't know what their quality is like. I don't know if they've got good customer service. I don't know if they have inventory. I haven't called them or anything yet. And our buddy Morgan at Sidetracked Off-Road. Oh, we need to do a side tangent here after this. So Morgan at Sidetracked, he has some phenomenal pricings on beadlocks.
Yeah, he does.
You can get steel 24 bolt beadlocks for $150 from him.
Yep. I might be doing that.
It's crazy. So if anybody's looking for budget friendly beadlocks that look great, and I haven't heard of anybody having any issues with it yet. I talked a little bit with Morgan about him, and he goes, yeah, we haven't really had any issues yet either come up from people. He's got some awesome pricing on beadlocks.
Shall we also say something about Morgan? Is that a few episodes ago, we put a shout out about getting him set up as a dealer for Yokohama tires.
Mm-hmm.
And since he does not do installs on tires, Yokohama said that he would not fulfill their requirements for being a dealer.
Correct.
So we're reaching out to some other people to try to see if we can have a service area in the Sacramento area to help.
We have one.
We do?
Yep.
Who is it?
Dimitri.
Ah, sweet. So, okay. So we're working with Stellarbuilt and Yokohama to connect those dots.
Yep.
Now. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. And then we're also trying to figure out if somebody is not in the Sacramento area and wants to order tires, who do we send them to?
Nationally.
Nationally.
So that's the piece of the puzzle we're still working on. But if you are local to the Sacramento area, or you want to come in and pick up the tires from Stellarbuilt, he said all you have to do is call the Stellarbuilt office, talk to Jesse, not Rob. And because Jesse's nicer, Rob's mean. I'm just kidding. Call and talk to whoever you want. And if somebody with an Australian accent picks up, just hang up on them.
Yes.
So anyways, call them, Dimitri said that if anybody comes looking for Yokohamas and said that they're from the podcast, they're a Snail Trail fan, he'll give you guys a discount, give you whatever he can do on them. There's not a large margin on tires, as kind of we all know about the tire industry. But he said that he will do what he can to make it worthwhile.
Sweet.
So if you're local and you're looking for some Yokohamas, I know I've had 4 or 5 people reach out since that last episode. Hit up Stellar Built and he can get you all set up.
Awesome. That's good to hear.
So yeah, that was my side tangent.
So what about you were going to talk about Morgan and wheels?
Yeah. Morgan, in talking with him about some of this stuff, I ordered up a couple of parts from him. He said that he would give me a great pricing on some of his bead locks. And he has some that I really like the look of. They're available in weight 8 on 170, but they're 17 on 9s with it would be a 1/2 inch total. So 1/4 inch each side. What is that? Less offset than the race lines. So the race lines would sit 1/4 inch wider on either side of the axle than his would.
Okay.
In looking at wheel options right now, I'm kind of leaning towards Morgan's just because I'm planning on building my axles pretty damn wide. And I know I'm going to be right at the limit of the Barrett Lake gate, which is 87 3/4 inches track width. I might be going with Morgan's wheels to help suck my track width in 1/2 inch.
Got it. Okay.
But
plus, the customer service is good and he's at a decent quality.
Yeah.
He would tell us.
Yeah, he would tell us for sure. And I know that he does a lot of good for off-road trails and the off-road industry. Raceline does too. That's another reason why I really love that company.
Yeah.
Is they do a lot for keeping trails open and available for the public. But I just don't know anything. I love the idea of the 17x10s. I just know nothing about that company.
Right.
So,
okay.
But there is an option out there. Somebody was like dead set on 17x10 bead locks. Let's see. Where do we go from there? Okay. Yeah. This one, Andrew Pike was asking if I've had any issues with my Toyota axles. Why am I even changing axles in the first place? Which we kind of already covered.
Well,
right?
it's a good question, but the answer is pretty much wider and more stable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they're bigger and beefier and you don't have to be fragile on them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So here's an interesting one since we were kind of talking about brakes.
Okay.
This one's from Sal Buffo, who I believe Sal is part of the Winch Mob.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we ended up going off and talking about some other stuff too. But he says, I listened to the recent podcast talking about your axle and brake choices. Not sure if you've ordered your e-brakes yet, but I have another option I have been using for a while now on my 4Runner. It's 2019 and up GM 1500 and 2021 Tahoe Yukon Suburbans have rear calipers with an electric motor on them to run the parking brake. So everything is all built into one caliper.
That's cool.
Yeah. And he just goes on saying some of the parts that he gets are off there. You can get them at any auto parts store. The motors run about $300 on Rock Auto to $350. But he's been able to find the calipers and everything else for pretty cheap on eBay too. So I was like, that's pretty cool. I kind of like that idea a lot.
Yeah.
But then, how would I modify that to fit on the front? Because I want the brakes the same on all 4 corners. I don't want to have to worry about carrying, different calipers front and rear or different brake pads front and rear. So is that something that I could make work for the front?
I wonder if they have the same calipers, but they just don't have the motors in some versions.
Maybe they're kind of like the similar caliper with the same pads at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or even the same caliper, just not the e-brake feature in it.
Yeah. No motor built into it.
I wonder what the front brakes on that same vehicle look like.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. So that's another option. If I wasn't so far into the brakes in terms of ordering everything and spent all the money on it already, I would look into this option further. I think it's really enticing. So for anybody who is looking at brakes, hit up Sal Buffo and talk to him about what he does in his rears of his Toyota. Buffo.
Uffo.
Yep. Because it sounds like a really cool option. And I wish I had more time to look into it more.
I wonder if that's I think the guy took the crazy ride up Chocolate Thunder. Yeah. His name. It might have been Sal. It might have been Jay though. I can't remember. He raced this last year at King of the Hammers.
Huh.
But man, if I went up Chocolate Thunder in like 5 minutes.
You did?
Yeah. In his rig.
Oh, in his rig.
He was driving.
Okay.
Yeah. It was insane. And we were sitting there in line and he got frustrated. And then he went over into the rocky area.
On the right.
Blah, 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 through that. And then we zoomed all the way up and around. We looped Chocolate Thunder like 3 times in a matter of like half an hour.
Was it a buggy or?
It was a truggy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. He has a Forerunner that's really well built. He uses Chevy Kingpin axles.
Oh, cool.
In the front, which we talked about, passenger drop, late 70s.
Yep.
That's what he uses on all of his builds pretty much.
Okay.
And yeah, he's got a sweet setup.
Nice.
Let's see. Another one here is from Trey Williams.
Hey, Trey.
Who I believe is Sweet 80, something like that on Instagram. Anyways, Trey Williams, he said, hey, listening to your last episode now that you were talking about the wonderful world of 9-inch, and word to the wise, do not use ARBs in 9-inch applications.
Interesting.
The carrier then becomes your weakest link.
Huh. I wonder if that's also the reason that they don't do e-lockers. Because there was something in there about there's not a lot of space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember when we were looking into e-lockers for 9-inch, there people were like, there's just not enough room to package an e-locker in there.
Which sounds very odd.
Yeah.
Because they have e-lockers for 8-inch. So why can't they make an e-locker for a 9-inch?
Right.
But yeah.
I don't know.
Bigger axle shafts.
So anyways, I don't know. I mean, I guess if you're doing like a 35 or a 40 spline, but so he said specifically the RD99, which is the ARB model number for that application. So
did he say why?
He said that he kept popping them in his Land Cruiser. He has a 9-inch in his Land Cruiser apparently, and he kept popping them and then finally switched out to a spool.
Well, yeah.
So yeah,
spool's the answer to everything.
In some part I agree. So that's a good segue into the next little topic. So I went down a little bit of a rabbit hole with D Mill, Derek.
Oh, so whenever you talk to D Mill, it's not a little rabbit hole.
It's not. It's a big rabbit hole. Yes.
Before we go there, should we talk about what Fortune Off-Road discussed in regards to ARBs and front and rear?
Oh yeah, that was fascinating. Let's talk about that since we're kind of on the topic of ARBs. Oh God, you have a story over there.
Yeah, it's a hell of a message.
Yeah,
but I'll more or less summarize it. He said, "Hey, just listening to the most recent episode. From my experience, lockers versus turning is largely dependent on your wheelbase. With short, less than 100-inch wheelbase, the rear needs to be unlocked so you don't get pushed through the turn. In longer wheelbases, like 115 plus, the front being unlocked helps you steer sharper and not scrub through the turns." He said in his Samurai at 89 inches, going from a spool to a Spartan in the rear was huge for his turning improvement, but in his Suburban, he needed the opposite. And then he goes off and talks on a few other things, but he sent us 2 videos. One of John Curry talking about how he has his rig set up. Mm-hmm. He has a locker in the front and a selectable locker in the rear. Mm-hmm. And then he sent us another video of like a old CJ5 or something, has selectable lockers front and rear, and it did a whole bunch of turns. Mm-hmm. And pretty much when things were locked front and rear, the turning radius was massive.
It's huge.
Compared to the turning radius of having one of those options unlocked. Mm-hmm. And it did open was definitely the shortest turning radius, but then open rear locked front was the next shortest.
Yeah.
Then open front locked rear, but then locked was like twice the turning radius. So it's pretty interesting to see the outcome of how people set up their rigs with locked front or locked rear or selectables where. Mm-hmm. But it seems like if you're going to choose a selectable, you should have the selectable in the rear for turning applications.
If you're a shorter wheelbase.
Yeah. I mean, but he said 115.
Yeah.
And
JKs are 116.
Yeah, I would throw
4
that.
doors, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. So, I mean, I think the vast majority of people, it sounds like if you're running a JK or below, wheelbase, then it might be beneficial for you to have a selectable rear and locked front.
Yeah.
Or if you have selectable front and rear, then it's not an issue.
Yeah, I thought that was fascinating watching the video because I would have thought that locked in the rear, open up front would have given you a better turning radius than locked in the front, open in the rear.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's actually quite a bit shorter, a smaller turning radius.
Yeah.
So I thought that was fascinating. Yeah. So I thought that was pretty cool.
It was performed on concrete.
Yep.
Plenty of grip. And that's, it was interesting because I bet if it was performed in gravel or dirt, it probably would be bigger. Yeah. Because the front would probably be pushed wider.
Yeah. It's not getting as much traction. So it's just pushing through. Yeah. Which I mean is kind of my experience. Yeah.
So spool front.
Yeah. I mean, with selectable hubs, it's definitely a possibility, right?
Yep.
It's an option there.
You need to do selectable hubs on the rear axle.
I thought about that. And then I was like, no, my friends are the types of people that they're going to go and unlock all my hubs.
Yeah,
I'm just going to sit there not going anywhere.
Oh, absolutely. That's me for sure.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So I thought that video was awesome. So when you're talking about putting a spool in the front now, there's a question about strength versus usability.
Okay.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, and this is kind of where I went down a little bit of a rabbit hole with Derek with. He was saying that a 9.5 inch high pinion from an F250 Super Duty axle is going to be stronger than a 10.5 inch quote unquote low pinion.
Sure.
And I was like,
well, weren't we having the same argument with an 8 inch high pinion versus a 9.5 Land Cruiser low pinion?
Yep.
Oh.
Yep. And so,
they're pretty equivalent, more or less is what it came down to.
8 to 9.5 inches. But a 10, just how much more metal is there in the carrier of the 10.5 to help keep deflection from happening in the first place? And how much thicker the ring gear is? I would argue that the 9.5 is going to be stronger than the 10.5, but I don't think that the 10.5 is weak by any means. Maybe if I was spending a lot of time hammering in forward, then yeah, I would say, okay, I agree. I think I should probably be on a high pinion in the front, but that's just not what I'm using this vehicle for.
No. Right.
So it's not my application.
You're not hitting whoops at 70 miles an hour.
No, and neither do I want to. I have no inclination or desire to do that.
There's the shock load on that third member isn't going to see the value of going one way or another isn't going to matter because you're not going to apply that shock load.
I think, unless
you're going to be doing wheelies up Soup Bowl.
Yeah, which I don't plan on again. And so that kind of brings down to the argument because he kind of made a statement of, it just kind of makes no sense. You're looking to build the ultimate strength axle, but you're putting in selectable hubs and a low pinion third member into the front. And I was like, I'm not here to build the ultimate strength axle. If I was here to build the ultimate strength axle, I would be getting Spider Trax axles and 10-inch tube works third members. Like, I wouldn't be going what I'm doing. What I'm trying to do is build something that is strong enough for what I do without losing a lot of value and diminishing returns, if that makes sense.
You're kind of doing a budget build.
Kind of a budget, but not, I mean,
you're kind of, you're doing a mid-budget build.
I guess, yeah.
Somewhere. I mean, the thing is you wanted to do this build with Toyota third members. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then it goes from there. Like, how do I actually do this build? Mm-hmm. But you're not going out of your way to buy the best and most expensive stuff, but you are looking for quality.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You're not trying to break the bank on it. No. You've never claimed, I don't think you've ever claimed that I'm trying to build the strongest axle ever.
No.
I don't know where I'm going with that statement. Yeah. However, I don't think that.
But I think what I'm trying to do is find this nice blend of strength versus utility, Because if I just wanted strength, then I'd put spools front and rear. But then I'm going to burn everything. I'm going to burn through my tires in one season because I drive on the road.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah. Yeah. I haven't daily driven Bobcat in a long time. But I think if you were to do, you're rotating your tires because when you unlock the hubs in the front.
Yeah.
And they're spinning independently.
Well, no, if I was building a strong axle as possible, I wouldn't have hubs. It'd be drive flanges.
So, I mean, but then one of the things is if you're going to build the strongest axle ever, you're not going to be you're not daily driving your rig.
Exactly. Right. I'm not daily driving
trailer
it.
queen.
Yes. So I'm trying to find this blend of strength versus utility. And where is that happy medium that works for me? And that's the only conclusion I kind of come up for with how this build is going. Because it's not a budget build. A budget build just be going and getting junkyard F250 axles and throwing them into the rig.
Yeah.
But it's not build this ultimate strength thing, because then I would just be going and buying $30,000 in Spider Trax axles. And so it's kind of this blend of how do I get strength and utility in one? And who knows? Maybe it's not possible. It's not going to work. I don't know, but it could fail gloriously. But I think it's going to be a lot of fun to do in the process, and that's also a big value of it.
Yeah, so. And also to some extent, one of the reasons that you're doing this is because it's unique. Nobody's ever done it before. Nobody's ever tried to do this, to our knowledge.
People have used 10.5-inch third members out of Tundras
for the rear axles.
Randy Slauson had in his front axle in 2009.
Did he?
Yep.
What housing was he running?
I think diamonds or rough stuff. There's only two 10.5-inch housings.
I think it was diamonds. Now that you say that, but yeah. So I mean, okay, so but they're not common. It's not well known. And he was running an Ultra 4 race application, which means he had different outers set up. He's got different stuff going on with the axles than what I'm doing. But like when I heard that he had used those third members, I was like, okay, so this is possible. How do we do it? Yeah. It's not well known. It's not documented. It's not something you ever hear.
No.
And there could be a reason for that.
Right. And that's kind of what I'm thinking. I'm like, maybe there is a reason why nobody does these.
But I think that what you're doing is you're trying to find the workaround. It's not easy. There's not a lot of applications for it, but once you found the housings, then it opens the door. Now there are a bunch of applications, it's like, okay, that you have diamonds, those fit the 10.5-inch Toyota third members, and any outer steering setup can more or less go on diamonds.
Pretty much. Yeah.
From there out, it's now a matter of how to connect the steering components, slash axle shafts to the third member. Yeah. We just kind of went down a little bit of a rabbit hole, and I thought that was a lot of fun chatting with him about that. And then somebody else I think it was Irate, that they had mentioned, why are you doing selectables? And I was like, because I want to drive on the street. And then the idea was kind of brought up that you had said, well, if you do a proper tire rotation, you're not really burning through tires that quickly. You may have to get some harder compound tires, but you're not going to go through them as quickly as you think you're going to go through them. But then I also started thinking about snow wheeling. There are times in extreme snow wheeling where a spool will kill you. Because what happens if you're taking a hairpin turn on an off-camber turn, and you need your tires to maintain traction at all times. In snow, as soon as you break traction, it becomes like ice and you slide. Sure.
And so if your tires and your wheels can spin at different rates, it allows them to maintain traction easier. Whereas on a turn, right? So that they're actually rotating at the same rate that you're turning. Whereas if you're spooled or completely locked up, your inside tire is going to spin out. It does a burnout while you're turning, right?
It'll turn faster than your outside.
Then
it spins the same rate, but it's like the road. Yeah, that's weird to say.
Right? Thank you.
The internal circle is rotating quicker.
Yes.
Which is why it chirps.
Yep, it chirps when you're locked up and turning on pavement. But if you do that on an off-camber hairpin turn in the snow, then your ass end, as soon as that inside tire loses traction and it starts spinning faster than the ground you're covering, then you start sliding down that hill in the snow.
Okay. But your outside tire has not lost traction.
No, but 4 tires of traction is better than 3 tires of traction.
Yes.
And so the more that inside tire spins and turns, the less that it's going to use to keep you up on the hill.
I understand that.
Yeah.
I don't think I have enough snow wheeling experience to comment, but
we need to get you out in deeper snow this year.
The tire that is still on the outside of that apex is still giving you grip and still pushing you forward.
It is, but it's not holding you up anymore. Your inside tire is what typically holds you up when you're on an off-camber hillside in the snow.
Okay.
Because all the weight of the vehicle, your center of gravity shifts kind of onto that back rear tire. So if you lose traction on that tire, you just start sliding down off of the road.
Okay.
So there are times.
Drift it.
Yeah, exactly. There are definitely times in snow wheeling where you want to be wheeling open. And it's very niche times when you need that, but there are definitely times for it. So being able to have the selectable lockers will allow me to still do that. So that's another reason why I don't want to just go with a Detroit or a spool or something or weld it up. So again, strength versus utility, right?
Sure.
How do we blend this here? A fun one that came through was from Joe R. And he sent me some pictures because he was like, "Hey, I heard you like Dropout third members."
Yeah.
And I was like,
Okay.
"Yeah, I think they're pretty cool." He goes, "Check out this one. It's a 16-inch Dropout third member."
Oh, I think he sent that to me also.
Yes.
The pinion was like massive.
It was about as big as my head.
Yeah.
It was like he was holding the pinion shaft, and the pinion head was almost twice as big as his fist holding the pinion.
Yeah. It was crazy.
Yeah. And I was like, "Oh my God, that is what is that out of?" And he goes,
Probably
"It's
like
a tractor."
Yeah, a dump truck or something.
Yeah, it's a tractor. And then he goes, "It was pretty cool, actually, the way that these used to be put together, right?" So he said when tractors used to be produced back before they had steering on them, they steered by
skid steer.
What?
One side versus the other.
Skid steer. Kind of. He said, I asked him if there was a Detroit locker.
Like a tank.
Kind of. He said, "It's rare that these tractors ever spin tires, so they weren't common at first. I do a lot of work in mud, though, so I wish they did. I had to do a double, blah, blah, blah." And he's okay. So they're from a tractor. Kind of interesting, actually. The whole articulated tractor thing started when they used to take 2 semi-rear ends and point them at each other. So the whole tractor bends in half to steer instead of having a steer axle.
I don't get it.
So I'm guessing there's a pivot point in the middle to bend them in order to steer.
How would you control which way it bends?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Or whatever way it bends, then you drive forward or backwards?
Maybe. Yeah, I don't know.
He said the turn you want?
He said that the dropout that he sent me a picture of, that's a semi-rear end, but on the front end of a tractor.
Interesting.
It was really confusing for the parts guy because he was trying to tell me I needed a pass-through differential if it was on the front, but I kept having to tell him it was going in a versatile tractor, even though it came out of a Ford truck. He said the whole third member weighs about 400 pounds.
Oh my gosh.
That's more than Hussman's engine.
Yeah.
Oh man. So he said that he had to stack feed sacks all the way up to it and then pulled all the bolts and let it fall out on the feed sacks.
Dang.
And then he had to buy a transmission jack to put it back in.
I bet. How did he blow it?
He's just said he had to do some work on it. Yeah.
Something that big, man.
It was the pinion teeth had chipped up on it.
Dang.
So he
How
said
do you do that?
That's a good question, right? So yeah, I don't know. He was like, "Yeah, this was my first dropout third member I've ever done. So I'm looking forward to when I can do a Toyota 8-inch now. It's going to be so easy to pull those out."
Yeah.
So anyways, I thought that was a lot of fun. Him writing in.
It's only half the size.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, here's a picture of all the shrapnel that was in the bottom of the housing.
Holy cow. Yeah, that's a lot. That looks like bobcats.
Yeah, after that trip on Fordyce, all the teeth gone. Yeah. Oh man. So anyways, I thought that was a lot of fun. Thank you, Joe, for writing in and giving me a couple of really good laughs and showing me your third member.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All 16 inches.
All 16 inches of his third member. All right. So let's get into an e-locker, shall we?
All right.
So
electronic locker.
And I remember I've been asking people, why do e-lockers suck? Because everybody's like, e-lockers are terrible. You should never run those. I'm like, why? Nobody can tell me why. Shout out to MSO Ash on irate 4x4. He has a video of the guy that created the not the JDM, the TJM, JTM. It's an Australian company.
Okay.
I think it's TJM. The TJM locker, the Pro locker. It was an air actuated locker that I think was a predecessor to the ARB lockers.
Got it. Okay.
And the guy that created them shot a video of comparing the TJM Pro locker to an Eaton e-locker. The differences out of, I don't know, it was like a 9.5, 9.25, something like that. Nissan truck, Patrol maybe. I don't know if I'm saying that. It was some Australian jargon. I don't know what it was. Right. Anyways, they were showing how the carrier for the e-locker has like a good 1/2 inch of gap between the carrier and the ring gear that Eaton could fill on like every single e-locker to make the spider gears bigger.
Oh, interesting.
And thicker in there. And to have a bigger locking ring and thicker locking ring and more bigger hardware inside the carrier to keep it all held together, right? I was like, interesting. See, this is what I was looking for. This is what I wanted to see. I wanted evidence that shows why e-lockers are so bad, so weak, Eaton specifically, strength-wise, versus other options that are equivalent for equivalent applications, right? So the ARBs, the TJMs.
Is that company still around?
TJM?
Yeah.
They are, but they don't sell outside of Australia.
Got it.
So I need to get Charles Locke to buy me one of the lockers and ship it on over.
But it's still an air lock.
It's still air actuated. Yeah. Yeah. And so it was a really cool video and it makes a lot of sense. Everything that he pointed out and then compared to the TJM the Pro locker, it made absolute sense. The locking ring is different. The disengagement of the locker, how the locker disengages, it makes a lot of sense why a lot of people complain that they don't disengage quickly and easily. And so that made a lot of sense. And I'm like, that to me is a moot point for the most part, because I'm just going to lock up my lockers on a trail, and when I'm on a trail, I'm going to act like I'm a spool vehicle pretty much from here on out. I was like, okay, yeah, whatever. But then I went and looked at my Eatons after that video. I looked at the Eatons in my third member, and sure as hell, there's about a 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch gap between the carrier and the ring gear that Eaton could use to make beefier components on the e-lockers.
Okay.
So I'm like, all right, you have a point. So shout out to MSO Ash for coming up with that and bringing it to light. Because I originally bought ARBs,
right?
The ARB lockers before I found out that Eaton had them. And I haven't been able to sell the ARBs. So they're still sitting up on a shelf. I will probably just keep them and hold on to them.
If you ever break.
Until if I ever do break one of the Eatons. Like if I break one of them right away, then okay, I might switch back over to the ARBs and see if I can fix or figure out what the oil leaking thing is, or see if the Tundras do the same thing that the 8 inches are doing. But if the Eatons last me like 7 years, 8 years or whatever, then okay, I'll probably put another Eaton in.
Yeah. I'm curious also because you're going up from an 8 inch to a 10.5. Mm-hmm. It's going to be so much beefier anyway.
Yeah. Than an 8 inch.
Than an 8 inch. Mm-hmm. You might not have the problems.
Yeah. I think I'm building these axles stronger than what I need them to be strong for. And so that's kind of also my hope, is that going from the Toyota 8 inch carrier to a Tundra 10.5 inch Eaton carrier, that there's already going to be a strength difference there.
Yeah, I should hope there is.
I would too, right?
Otherwise, why are you upgrading?
Exactly.
You should just get longer, wider Toyota axles.
Right. So the kicker to all of this is that I'm going to get out on a trail and hit my first rock with my front diff, and then say, this is stupid, and put in an FJ80 axle in the front.
Yeah.
A custom FJ80. So go with a high pinion 8 inch. Also in all of this, Hussman found 99-04 unit bearings with a 6 by 5.5 lug pattern from Curry.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I called Curry and I said, hey, first off, why do you have this unit bearing listed under your page for JKs, JLs, and JTs? I was like, I totally bypassed this page and you may have lost a sale from me because the Toyota lug pattern is buried under a Jeep titled page. And they're like, oh yeah, it's because we used to build Curry does the Pro Rock 60s.
Okay.
Whatever their custom 60 axle is that they build. They said that they used to build them with a 6 on 5.5 lug pattern for Jeeps because they wanted to run a Toyota lug pattern for some reason. I don't know, but that's what he said. And he goes, so we have them listed under the Jeep page here. And I was like,
you should fix that.
You should probably fix that. You might get some more business from Toyota owners trying to find these unit bearings from somebody other than Nitro or Trail Gear. And if you guys have them and you guys are kind of like the people for axles that have the information about axles, it might be nice for you guys to put those under, maybe a Toyota page or something like that so that they're listed correctly. And he goes, yeah, okay, I'll talk to the thing people. Did you want a pair? What are you looking for here? I was like, okay, here's my question. Spider Tracks takes their 99-04 unit bearings and changes out the spindles on the stub nose, makes them chromoly heat treated. Do you guys do anything to your unit bearings to make them different? Or are you just taking Timken 99-04 unit bearings and re-drilling 6 on 5.5 lug patterns into them? He goes, yeah, that's what we're doing. I said, okay, so you're not modifying the unit bearings in any way, shape, or form other than the lug pattern? He goes, nope. I said, okay, thanks. Talk to you later.
So it's still running that weird offset, rubbing funny.
Yeah, whatever that issue is on the 99-04 unit bearings with the wheel bearing and spindle issue. So, because I had said, I think at one point that I thought Curry redid their unit bearings, and it doesn't sound like they do.
Right.
So, anyways, let's get into some fun stuff now.
Okay.
Because this is the part of the show where Ultra 4 Jones is going to just shut off the show and he's never going to listen to us again.
So I'm not sure he listens to us now.
I don't think he does,
I think he just has subscribed to our channel and reads the titles.
Probably. He reads the title. He's like, nah, listen to the first 5 minutes.
I think he's mad that he's been on every single other podcast out there except for ours.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Oh, I don't got anything to say about that. We need to get down there. He needs to get up here. We need to get together at some place.
Yeah.
When we're down at King of the Hammers or something. So, alrighty. I have some voicemails.
Okay.
From a lovely gentleman. His name is Chris Paul.
Chris Paul.
He's always wearing gym shorts.
Oh, okay.
And he drives an H3.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Okay. I know was he on UA?
Yep, he was.
Okay.
So most people who know Chris Paul know him from Ultimate Adventure. He's the H3 Hummer that was on Ultimate Adventure a few years back. I got to work recovery with him at Backdoor at King of the Hammers during the side-by-side of the 4900 race one year. And it was a lot of fun just hanging out with him for the day, chatting with him, getting to talk about stuff, build and engineering ideas on his Hummer because everything under that Hummer is completely custom built.
Wow. Okay.
I don't know if he's using too many off-the-shelf parts or he may take off-the-shelf parts and then completely modify them for his uses, right?
Wow.
And so just looking at everything that he's done with that Hummer for the suspension and axles, it was very, very impressive. And he's done it all himself.
That's awesome.
I take, when Chris has ideas about something, I take him a little serious. Kind of like Derek to an extent. I don't always take Derek super seriously, but when it comes to talking about suspension and axles, I take Derek seriously. So Chris called in and left a few lengthy voicemails. And I'm choosing to go with Chris's voicemails first. And then I also have some conversations with Trent Roberts.
Oh, okay.
And I think they're all coming to the same conclusion. So I'm going to play Chris's first because I just read through the first voicemail, but there's 3 of them. So we're going to see kind of what he had to say. And then I think I know where it's heading, but it's also really long. So you ready for story time?
I'm leaning back on the cuddle couch now.
All right, Chris. So here's our interview with Chris Paul.
Hey guys, I have a feeling I'm going to have to leave more than one voicemail, but I figured I wanted to give some input on your axle podcast. So my name's Chris. I think you know me. I've wheeled with you guys maybe once or twice. I've run into you. I have the H3 that's solid axle swapped on 43. So I'm an axle lover. I have oddball axles. So I'll just tell you a little bit about mine before I get into your axles, just so you know I'm not talking out of my ass and you're like, does this guy even know anything? So on my H3, I'm running an Eaton HO72 in the rear. The front is a Dana 70 center section with side adjusters, like a 14 bolt or a Toyota 8-inch or a 9-inch. That's very rare. It's out of a rear 05 diesel van out of a Chevy. And then Dana 60 Kingpin outers out of a Chevy. And then I made the axle to take Chevy length shafts so I could get off the shelf shafts. And then I modified the hubs to basically machined them down so I could slip on rotors. It makes it much more serviceable, almost like a unit bearing, even though it's traditional bearing setup. And then I put tone rings on them so the ABS and all the traction control crap works on the H3. It thinks it's got factory axles under it. And then I modified the rough stuff Dana 60 disc brake brackets and cut those up and adapted them to accept factory H3 calipers in the front because H3 calipers are kick-ass, surprisingly. So anyways, that was that. Hopefully, you know, I'm not just talking out of my ass. I can now talk about your axles. So I think your setup is good. I love the Tundra idea. Different. I like different. And I think along with that, ground clearance won't really be an issue. Now, it also is difficult to say because it is a Tundra axle and we don't really see a lot, but most fabricated axles with a dropout third, they normally have better ground clearance than, you know, diffs with a traditional cast center section. The one thing I will say, so you really, really like your crane, you really like the crane setup because of the Kingpin. It's got like a bearing at the bottom and then it's got the Kingpin up in the top and then you set your preload. What you could do is get Reed Super Kingpin knuckles and C's and then you could run a factory, you know, 05 and up unit bearing and then you use busted knuckle brakes, the brake setup with the factory rotor, but then they use the Willwood disc brakes. So instead of getting the junkyard 05 and up Super Duty C's for your axle, you could get the...
That's the end of the first voicemail.
The end of part 1 with the interview with Chris Paul.
Interesting stuff, though. This guy does... I mean, I don't think I've ever met him in person, but I do know of Chris. And I mean... that's a one hell of a setup. That's I
didn't realize he was wearing it. He was running the HO72 in the rear.
Yeah.
Remember we did that one episode on it?
Yes. It's a very unique rear end.
Right?
That's awesome.
Yeah. So he's got a lot of fun stuff going on. We're going to get into the other ones here. Let's see. Was there anything I wanted to touch on? Ground clearance was the main thing on this one. And the Reed Super Kingpin knuckles. We'll get to that one in a little bit here. Remind me about that one. Well, that's what the conversation with Trent was about. But the center section, yeah, supposedly the fabricated housing from Diamond wraps so closely to the ring gear on the Tundra 10.5-inch third member that you're only losing like an inch, maybe an inch and a quarter of ground clearance. Compared to what would compared to a factory 8-inch.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's really not too bad. I'm not too concerned about it. I'm also thinking about fabricating, making my own bash plate for the bottom of the front of the center section and the rear of the rear center section.
Okay.
So that if I do hit it on rocks, I'm not just going to cave in that center section into the ring gear.
Right.
So I'm also planning on doing that. But yeah, I'm not I don't know, super. I think ground clearance is a minor concern under the axles, but not the biggest concern for me.
Yeah, but if you just go to 42s, then you're over.
That is true. Yeah, once I go to 42s, I'll be back to my 8-inch stock Toyota housing.
Pretty much. Yep.
So, anyways, cool. We'll get back to the Reed Super Kingpins. That's an important part that I think he's going to touch on here in the second one.
I think he's going to continue on with that.
Yeah. Okay. So here we go.
All right, I got cut off. So, yeah, I would run the Reed Super Kingpin knuckles. I mean, you don't have to, honestly, for the weight of your rig compared to the, what they came under, you're going to be fine. But if you wanted to go all out, Reed Super Kingpins with the busted knuckle brake kit, I think that would be the best kit. I think the unit bearings are better than the Dana 60 Kingpin traditional bearing setup. But I also think the Kingpins are better than the ball joint setup on an 05 and up Super Duty. And I think Reed knocked it out of the park and basically took the best of the both worlds and said, we're going to take the best of the best. And I think that's the ultimate setup. But again, with your weight, horsepower, things like that, I think you'll be fine with regular C's. But I wanted to mention it. Then in terms of irate, I've gotten a lot of crap on there too. Some people are just grumpy, so don't take it personally. I try, I've got oddball rigs and an oddball tow rig, and I've gotten hate. So anyways, don't take it personally. But on the e-locker front, there's two different types of e-lockers. I've broken just about every single selectable locker there is. I finally am now on the ARB. I'm not having those leaking issues where, it got gear oil coming out of the solenoid and that, but yeah. It's been in for a year. It's been problem free. But the old style e-locker, I can promise I can break it like breaking a toothpick. The new school one, I did eventually break after 5 years, or just about 5 years. So, and I was running stock shafts. So, I mean, keep that in mind. But again, I'm on 43-inch Mickeys that are like ag tires. I've got a V8, 400 horsepower doubler. And I weigh 7,000 pounds. So I don't think you'll see that locker will see the same abuse just from a weight and power standpoint. But yeah, so just keep that in mind. And then the only other suggestion other than the Reed Super Kingpins is I would try and build your axle, to accept factory length shafts. So if your locker is 35 spline in the Tundra, then, try and build it around like Chevy or Ford length factory shafts. So if you ever break a shaft, you can get one pretty easily. But other than that, I think it's going to be a cool build, and I'll keep up on it. I'll try and watch it on irate if you keep it there, or I'll watch it on Instagram, and I'll try and listen to the podcast too. So I'm excited, and talk to you guys soon. Thanks.
That's awesome. Thanks, Chris, for calling in.
Yeah, he called in one more time.
Oh,
there's a part 3 to the interview.
There's a part 3.
Yeah.
Good suggestion, but we do have a comment on the shafts, I think.
Yeah. The Tundras are 36 spline in there. So I wouldn't be able to go and get a stock shaft kind of thing. So yeah, the shafts are the one thing that I'm concerned about. Out of this entire build, out of everything I'm doing, the shafts are the one thing I'm concerned about. And the easy answer to that would be to, in the ARBs, you can redo the side gears on the ARB differentials. I don't know if you can do the same thing on the Eatons. Interesting. So
you could change out the gearing from 35 to 36
because it's 1/100th of an inch difference in diameter. So they're so close in diameter that you can swap out the side gears on them.
You should just buy 36 ones and shave one of the teeth down and make it a 35.
Yeah, that'll work. But yeah, the shafts do worry me.
I mean, your answer is just to buy extra shafts.
Exactly.
Right now.
That is my answer. And my rear. So I got my rear axle shafts for $400.
Yeah. Which is insane.
It's crazy. Those shafts should be like $2,000 total.
Right. And you can't, that's part of it, right? Is like, you're going to have, that's also what's determining your length.
My width.
The width of the vehicle, because you already bought some custom made axle shafts.
Yeah. So, I'm saving some money on the rear axle shafts, about $1,500. I'm saving about $6,000 on the third members, because if I was going to go, into the 9-inch realm, like I was thinking, then my third members are going to be $5,000 to $6,000 a piece.
Yeah, maybe.
And my current ones are only $2,000 a piece. So I'm saving about $6,000 on third members, about $1,500 on rear axle shafts. That leaves a little bit of extra room in the budget to maybe pick up a couple extra spare axle shafts and then just tie them onto my frame under the rig or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Zip tie them between your rock sliders and your frame.
Right.
Between the body and your rock sliders and the frame. Like, there's
right into the kickers right there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I'm saving by going the route I'm going. I am saving about $7,500. So I still haven't decided if I want to let that money just ride and be a complete savings in the budget, or whether I want to take that money and apply it to some other kick-ass things like Reed Super Kingpins.
Okay.
Or spare axle shafts or new wheels now. Anyways, before we get into Reed Super Kingpins, let's go into part 3 with the interview with Chris.
Hey guys, it's me again. Sorry. When I hung up, I realized I forgot one detail. So I mentioned run stock length shafts so you can get a spare if you ever need one. The Tundra's 36 spline, and I totally forgot that. But you could put a 35 spline side gear in the locker. I did some research looking at the bore size of the carrier, and then I actually found someone on I Hate Mud that said you could put 35 spline or 37 spline side gears in an ARB for a Tundra. You could do that. I don't know if Eaton, I will say, is the worst customer service. They will not give you parts. They will not work with you. So if you buy a 36 spline Eaton E-Locker, that's what you get. Now I have a 35 spline broken Dana 60 E-Locker. I could give you a side gear and you could see if it fits. If you really, really want the E-Locker. But figured I'd mention that. So sorry to call again, but, I don't know. Maybe if I keep calling you guys, maybe we'll just call me and I'll join the podcast for, 20 minutes. So just kidding. And then lastly, the ARB, leaking out of the solenoid. My ARB hasn't leaked, but I've only had it in for a year. It hasn't leaked out of the solenoid. I did some research. People say sometimes that's plugged up, diff breathers or the O-ring is slowly going bad. I was like over the top anal about it, where I triple checked the leaks and everything when I was putting it together, and it's so far no leaks, but I know how that goes. So I'll keep you posted on that, but maybe check for a plug diff breather. Anyways, can't wait for the next podcast. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah.
That's kind of funny. We just kind of covered that. But yeah, so those are good options. I might snag that Dana 60 from them and see if it might be feasible to get them in there.
That's kind of what I'm thinking. I like that idea. Then I would at least have. Well, see, the other problem.
You multiple options.
It gives me multiple options. It gives me more options. Exactly.
And I don't know if you've bought front axle shafts yet.
I have not.
So you might not have to stick as wide. You might be able to look for a vehicle that has stock axle shafts.
Yeah.
That in a length that you like.
Mm-hmm.
If that is an option for you.
Mm-hmm.
And then sell those axle shafts, those custom ones, back to the guy for $400.
Yeah, right. I don't think he would take them. So yeah, I'm that is an option. Front axle shafts are going to be something that I was going to wait to tackle until I get everything cut and the WMS is cut. But if I can do the side gears on an Eaton E-Locker, I might be willing to go down that route and forego the rear axle shafts.
Yeah.
And get some stock length fronts.
Yeah. It might be something worth investigating.
Exactly.
Yeah. Maybe pull some strings. You're a business owner. You run a social media thing. You're not Chris Paul.
I'm not.
Maybe you can talk to Eaton. Who knows?
I don't know. So anyways, yeah. Thanks, Chris, for calling in. There's a lot of really good stuff there.
We need to get him on the podcast just to talk about his Hummer.
Dude, can you imagine the conversations and how long of a podcast we could do just sitting down talking with Chris?
Yeah.
He'll be at Hammers. So
it'll be an hour episode every day for a week.
Pretty much. Yeah. He'll be the weekly call-in.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh man. So, Chris, let's hit up and get together when we're down at Hammers. So
doesn't he live here? Doesn't he?
I think he's in SoCal.
I thought he's in Sacramento.
The Bay Area?
Bay Area? He's over here. So I thought he wasn't too far from us.
Yeah. I'll have to figure that out. We may have to get together with him sooner.
Yeah. Chris, we're in Sacramento. Where are you?
Yeah,
Call us.
We're Facebook stalking you right now, buddy. So anyways, Reed Super Kingpins.
All right.
Did we talk about those at all?
Not really.
Okay.
I think you just kind of brazed over them.
Okay. So I did. And here's kind of why. I really, really like the design of the Reed Super Kingpins. They have a really big turning radius. They are a kingpin setup on a really, really beefy knuckles and C's.
Right.
They're rated up to be about the same as 2.5 ton Rockwells.
Yes. Okay. You did talk about these a little bit.
Okay. So when I called Reed and I was talking with Reed about their application of using their C's and their Super Kingpin knuckles, I specifically asked, hey, do these work with 05 and up Super Duty unit bearings? And he said no.
Okay.
Which now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, yeah, that makes no sense because I know that that's what Will from Metal Cloak runs. He's the one that told me because I immediately, once I was relegated myself to going to the 05 and up unit bearings, I texted Will immediately and I was like, what knuckles are you running? I don't even know where to begin to look for knuckles for 05 unit bearings. And he goes, I'm running the Super Kingpins, the Reed Super Kingpins. I knew that Will runs the 05 and up Super Duty unit bearings, but like I didn't put two and two together when I called Reed.
Okay.
And so Reed told me that they wouldn't fit and that they had no brake options.
Right.
I mean, and which I guess I misunderstood. I took that to mean they didn't have any way to fit the same brakes front and rear using their knuckles on the front.
Okay.
Because I was like, what brake options do people run with your guys' knuckles to get some kind of off-the-shelf semblance, something that has good inventory that I can count on having inventory in when I do need it? I don't need it that day, but if I can get it within 1 to 2 months, I'm happy.
Sure. Okay.
And he goes, yeah, I got no options for you. And so I was just like, okay, Reed Super Kingpins, not going to work at all for anything I want to do. And so I gave up and I was like, well, I guess I'm not going to go that route. You know, what else do I do?
Right, okay.
And that's when I started and I found the Crane Magnum knuckles after that. Trent Roberts, I had a fun conversation with him.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah. So he is running the Reed Super Kingpins on his race car.
Yes.
And he's got 05 and up unit bearings.
Okay.
And he's running Willwood brakes.
Not 17-inch wheels.
17-inch wheels.
Okay.
Everything. And I'm like, hold on. I was like, how the hell did you make this work when Reed told me it wasn't possible? That wasn't going to work. He goes, I think Reed told you that they didn't sell anything to make it work. And I was like, well, I asked him if there was anything to make that work. And they said no. He goes, I think they were saying that they didn't have anything to work. And I was like,
right.
Well, that's annoying.
Yeah.
I mean, shame on me for not, I guess, being
Gullible.
super clear about what my intentions were or whatever. But I was like, well, that kind of sucks. I would have bought their Super Kingpins right then and there if they had said it was possible.
Right.
I was like, they kind of lost a sale.
Right. Yeah.
He goes, well, do you like what you're getting set up with now? And I was like, honestly, no. I feel like the busted knuckle kit, it's going to work for what I need it to, but I feel like I'm compromising because of the cost of the Crane knuckles.
Okay.
The Crane Magnum knuckles were over double the cost of the busted knuckle kit.
Wow.
I don't like ball joints. I don't like the concept of ball joints. And so I didn't really want to run ball joints, but for $2,000 less, I can deal with it. I was talking with Trent and he goes, you know, have you called Brannick yet about any of this? And I was like, no, I haven't. I was going to wait until I need axle shafts made to call Brannick. He goes, Brannick does more than axle shafts. I was like, okay, yeah, I'm new to the whole 1 ton world, so I don't know what people do. I'm going off of everybody's recommendations and saying, hey, you should call and talk to this company. Although calling and talking to Reed and Willwood has both left me with the wrong information. So I was like, okay, I guess I can call Brannick. He goes, call Brannick. You need to call Brannick and talk to them. Their customer service is awesome. They'll talk you through everything. They make a lot of different stuff for exactly what you're trying to do. I was like, oh, okay. And so that's essentially what Trent has done is he's using Brannick brake hats to run the Willwood brakes on the 05 unit bearings combined with the Super Kingpin knuckles.
Got it. Okay.
And so I was like, that's what I want.
Yeah.
I was like, I like the design of Kingpins for turning, for your Kingpin axis on your knuckles. How do you control that axis? I like the Kingpin design much better than ball joint designs. the bust knuckle kit comes with ball joint eliminators for the top ball joints, but the lower ball joints are still ball joints. Because I like the design of the kingpins better. And Chris hit it dead on the nail in his first voicemail. He goes, what you like about the Crane Magnum design is the kingpin design of it.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, it's very true. I do. But I've always, in planning these axles out, I've always wanted to stay away from quote unquote traditional kingpin knuckles, because the kingpin knuckles tend to have an issue with the stub shafts not sitting properly in the spindles.
Okay.
They would wear out over time and end up snapping the stub shafts on kingpin axles. And so I've always kind of been like, okay, well, and that's why it kind of got me stuck on the Spidertrax Uniball knuckles, because it kind of fixes some of the issues with kingpin knuckles. But he's absolutely right. Reed knocked it out of the park with those super kingpins by being able to take 05 and up unit bearings and put them on kingpin knuckles. So you don't have the issues with the stub shaft, because the stub shaft is like half the size, a third of the size on a unit bearing stub shaft versus a traditional kingpin stub shaft. Yeah, Reed knocked out of the park, and Trent is 100% right. That is why I didn't go with the Reed Super Kingpins, because I was confused about what Reed told me. And so now that I've had this talk with Trent and hearing Chris kind of echo the exact same thing, I'm still waiting for my busted knuckle off-road parts to come in, the knuckle kit and everything.
Have they been shipped?
Nope.
Call them. Call them and cancel your order.
I'm kind of thinking about it. I'm like, if I could call and cancel the order, then I can put together the exact same outers that Trent has on his car, which that's the route I want to go. After talking with Trent and kind of having my thoughts reconfirmed about what he's doing and why he's doing it, I was like, that's the way I want to go.
Right.
And so I'm like super tempted to call Bust Knuckle and be like, hey, cancel my order, refund it all.
Yeah. So you'll find out next episode if Tyler called. Yep. It was funny because I got a text message from Trent, and he's like, why didn't Tyler call me like months ago? Why? He's like, I just went through the exact same conversation that you guys had on this podcast. I went through that like 2 months ago, because he freaking destroyed
this front axle.
His front axle at King of the Hammers last year, and had to go and rebuild, for the most part, his entire axles. And he was like, scrap them. Like, get rid of those axles. I'm building all new ones.
Yep.
And that's what he's been doing, getting his rig ready for King of the Hammers this year.
Yeah.
And so he did this whole circus act of trying to figure out what to run.
Yeah.
And that's what he came up with. And then we were on our podcast a few episodes ago, we were talking about, and he's like, I just did all that. Have him call me. Like, I need to talk to him.
Yeah.
I need to tell him what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was funny. I was like, okay.
It was pretty funny. Like, I even said it to you. I was like, yeah, I think a lot of people have input in these axles, because there are a lot of options we can do.
Yeah.
And I was like, but I want to run the stuff that I want to run because what I want to do. And I don't know why I want to do it. And so I was like, I completely fully expected to go into that conversation with Trent ending it with, yeah, thanks for your input.
Right.
And just going to do my own thing anyways. And I was like,
sure.
I was like, no, that is exactly what I wanted to do in the first place. But I was confused about what Reed said.
But you couldn't connect the dots to make it work.
Exactly.
And then he was able to, he went another step farther and contacted Brannick and be like, here's what I want to do. Do you have a solution for this?
Yes.
So, and then they figured it out for him. Yeah.
Yep. So I think that's the route I'm going to go. And I've been like, waiting to see if my order from Busted Knuckle is shipped at all. Because I can run, just like Chris Paul said, which is what Trent is doing, is I can run the Busted Knuckle brake kit on it with either their brake hats or the Brannick brake hats, and use the stock rotor, but then run the Reed Super Kingpin knuckles on it all. And for some reason, from talking to all the companies, we couldn't get to that conclusion.
Interesting. Yeah.
Even though that's what I was originally trying to do. And so, I think I'm going to go that route. So I was kind of waiting to see if my Bust Knuckle kit comes in this week, so that I could look at everything, see just have it physically in front of me so I can see how everything gets going to get assembled, and then call Brannick and talk to him about if I need anything they have, or if the busted knuckle brake kit is going to work on the application with the Reed Super Kingpins, the way it comes.
So what did we learn from this episode? You might be changing axle shafts. You might be changing third members, and you might be changing knuckles.
I don't think I'll change third members. Maybe the lockers.
Well, the lockers.
Possibly down the road. I'm definitely going to build the axles with the E-lockers.
Okay.
But I might be changing them down the road sometime.
But if you can fit the 35 splines in there instead of the 36 splines.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know yet. I still haven't decided on that one. So
that's why I said might.
Yeah, might. That's true. I think I'm definitely going to change the knuckles to the Super Kingpins. I'm going to look into the side gears on the E-locker. I don't think I'm going to look into it super hard or spend a lot of time and energy on it. I think it would be good information to know, but I don't know if that's going to change my decision. So
sure.
And depending on what I do with that will determine the axle shaft thing.
Right. Absolutely.
So yeah, good stuff. I love all the feedback. And
absolutely.
This is one of the reasons why I love doing the podcast as well.
Oh yeah. It's a form like, okay, you know, our Instagrams are like Snail Trail's decent. You're catching up to me pretty quick on Instagram size. You know, I don't know where you're at.
I haven't been on Instagram in like 2 weeks.
Good for you. And, you know, and we have a decent reach there, but the reach on the podcast is way more.
It's so much more, and it's so much more
involved.
Is
that the right word?
I don't know if that's it's so much more targeted.
Maybe
like the feedback that we get from the podcast comes from some really, really knowledgeable people that we can have some really cool discussions with.
Why are they listening to us?
Yeah, right? Like, you guys should be doing this podcast. What are we doing this thing for?
But it's so cool to get all the feedback. I mean, we have the reach and that it has is amazing. But to have, you know, people out of the middle of nowhere contacting us, giving us suggestions or tips or tricks on how to do something one way or another is outstanding. And it's so much fun to be able to have these interactions with everybody out there.
Yep, 100%. I love it. That's why we do it. That's why we keep doing it. So keep getting in contact with us. Keep your feedback rolling in. If you want to have a one-side interview like Chris Paul did, then you can call and leave a voicemail. Chris, we're going to be hunting you down here shortly. And you guys can call in at 916-345-4744. There's always, of course, Instagram, like we were talking about there. So you can find us at 4x4 Toyota Tyler or Snail Trail 4x4 up on the grams. Of course, there's email. There's other ways as well to get a hold of us. There's the Facebook group. If you're a Snail Squad member, there's all the posts over on iRate 4x4 that has some great discussion going on. Yeah, we love being in contact with you guys. So we give you guys multiple ways to do it. So
his Instagram account says New York to SoCal to NorCal to Boise.
So he's in Boise?
So I guess he's in Boise now.
I don't know. Yeah. Interesting. All right, Chris, we'll have to hook up sometime, man, whenever you're here or we're over there or somewhere near you. So
yeah, definitely.
Maybe him and Andy can get together sometime and get Andy into rock crawling.
Yeah. Sounds good.
All right, man. Without further ado, any final words for everybody out there?
When are you going to get the rough stuff axle housings?
And with that, my friend, keep crawling.
This joke.
Uh-oh.
I don't know if I've ever said it before, and it's a pretty popular joke, and I'm sure most of you have heard it before, but it's a good one.
Let me guess. Damn.
No, that's a good one too.
Okay.
There are 3 types of people in this world.
Alrighty.
Those that can count and those that can't.
What about the third one?
Yep.